program is comments from Dr. James Haney. The issue is the Emancipation Proclamation. And Mr. Baxter, you're holding in your hand a reproduction of the Emancipation Proclamation. And why don't you give us not only some information in reference to the military aspect of it, but exactly what did this document mean in terms of black military participation?
Well, when we think in terms of the Civil War period, and at the very beginning of the Civil War, we find the abolitionists in the North, such abolitionists as Frederick Douglass. He began to recruit the Negro to participate in the Union forces as the war continued to progress. However, we find that Abraham Lincoln was certainly against the usage of the Negro. But not only that, we find among the Confederacy, Confederate forces, many of the Southern slave masters took their slaves into combat with them. However, there were other slave masters who, when saw a need not to participate in the war, and who also did not want to send their sons, they would send their slaves to represent them. However, we find with the Union forces, those slaves who became free by way of generals such as Butler, Fremont, and Hunter, they would eventually do the manual chores behind the Union lines. Then much later, those generals would begin to issue commissions to some of those soldiers. Not only that, those soldiers who fought with the Union forces in the Civil War in areas like the Battle of Nashville, down at Fort Pillow in West Tennessee, they played an intricate part in those victories, not only at Fort Negley here in Nashville, but also at Fort Pillow in West Tennessee.
Dr. Mitchell, as a matter of fact, you mentioned that military aspect of it in a conference not long ago.
Yes.
Perhaps you could give us some additional information.
Every year here in Nashville in December, we celebrate the Battle of Nashville. And it would have only been possible to recruit those black soldiers that the Union used because of emancipation. Blacks felt, even in the North, they would not enter the Union Army as long as there was not a law outlawing slavery in the United States. And the Battle of Nashville would have not been successful. It was a Union victory. Would have not been successful except for the first lines, the first bloodshed was that of black soldiers.
And so black participation in the military aspect